in the pods.
Yeah.
It's really peculiar. It's not particularly pleasant, actually. I mean, the whiskey's delicious, but the experience is like...
Yeah, and they're in like a sort of gelatine-y seaweed, isn't it? Coating or something. And then, yes, you can either bite the top off and drink it, or you can just get it in. But the world went mad, didn't it?
Well, honestly, the amount of press coverage, and again, it's just about something different, thinking outside the box, giving people an experience that they couldn't get anywhere else. They also they were smart about it because they launched it for London Cocktail Week in just one bar, Taylor and Elementary, which is, you know, by Alex Cortina and Monica Berg, who are known for their creations and doing really interesting things. I think it just, all of it was so interesting that people really, really wanted to go and try it.
We still get emails about it asking if we can send people some. We're like, no.
Yeah, our social media manager who answers any customer queries or anything, she was like, I'm quitting to go and set up my own whiskey pod.
Tide pods.
Tide pods.
So what was really clever about something like the whiskey pods specifically is that it's not just the fun or the occasion of a different texture, of a different way of drinking. It's actually quite a luxurious liquid put into like a kind of really modern way of doing that. So that's
approachable.
Yeah, and they kind of put a little flight together. That's right, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, like a flight of whiskies,
but all in the pods. Yeah.
So you're getting to taste something, but without even really knowing it, because you just want to experience the pods, and then suddenly you're trying these luxurious liquids. And not necessarily that brand particularly, but an industry, so Scotch, which historically, certainly back when I was working on Scotch PR, it was, you wouldn't do something.
You wouldn't even mix it in a cocktail. Not other
really.
Than a few of the classics. Like you wouldn't be messing about with.
No.
Especially not a single malt, for example. Like
that shows how far we've come on, but also what people want.
Yeah. Well, so bars specifically and bar groups that are doing a really good job of complete immersion for their guests are like the guys that own Cahoots.
Cahoots, I was going to say Cahoots.
Yeah. Or even actually Mr. Fogg's as a group here in London. They are like Cahoots is specifically, it's like stepping back in time. So everything about it, from how you get in, how the staff are dressed, what the venue looks like, the glassware it's served in, the entertainment. It's fully back in kind of wartime Britain, which.
Yeah, and it's again,
I'm sure we'd want to go back
a novelty.
There.
It's the novelty factor, I think, that kind of keeps people coming back, and then you want to bring your friends, and it's just something a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I do think people like a novelty, but again, there has to be some authenticity to it.
Yeah, agreed.
And consumers are savvy, and they can't, you can't patronise them. So Cahoots do it really well. They've really invested in creating this immersive world, and I think that speaks for itself. Whereas just creating something that
just a nod to something is not enough.
No,
I would say.
I mean, I think over the years we've certainly seen like what's on telly having an impact in what people are drinking and the experiences people are having. So yes, that probably does relate to something, just generally about people wanting to lose themselves in another world. Mad Men was the big one that we saw. That was 2013, 14 that we kind of saw that shift
in the
towards people drinking shorter drinks, because at that time Mad Men was just such a big thing, and they were drinking like these little Scotch drinks, martinis in a bar. It was kind of glamorized. And so we were seeing a lot more of these short stirred drinks and old fashions. We started seeing a rise in that. Then once you see the consumer shift and you get a handful of brands that then start investing in that, and then that pushes the consumer into it even more. So, for example, Woodford Reserve at that time decided to really invest in the old fashions, and the work that they put in then grew the market. So it kind of comes full circle. So it's like something happens, and whatever that might be, we talk about the Aperol Spritz.
Yeah.
Something happens, and then that has a shift, but years down the line.
Yeah, so we kind of plot this and I guess we end up at the aperitivo, but Aperol Spritz came in, someone, what's that? What are you drinking? What's the colour of it? I want one. And that, over
it's
time...
a very specific looking drink.
Yeah, definitely. And in a stemmed glass, and it was glamorous. And so then your palate changes. And so by the time Aperol was advertising on the tube panels, like our next tier of consumer were like, okay, I'm used to the bitter taste of Aperol. So then the bartender suggests Negroni. And the Negroni gets like a couple of years in the spotlight, and then that needs a push forward.
Yes,
and then
people start thinking about not wanting to be as drunk as quickly, and Negroni is a punchy drink. So then you're kind of back to, I like bitter flavours. Oh, I used to drink Aperol Spritz all the time, but I'm so much more past Aperol Spritz. And then they're looking for a different type of aperitivo. So then drinking Campari soda, or we're really seeing a trend towards the aperitivo style drinks, kind of bitter but long, and in the stem glassware.
Yeah, to the point that even so for 2020 we'll put in an aperitivo week. So that's like, as a kind of shift, that probably is about 7, 8 years, something like that. But like, again, just to see that follow through from this little marketing plan of a brightly coloured drink in a stemmed glass in the summer to now an entire celebration citywide in the leading cocktail city in the world, of that moment, of that 5 p.m. moment of a slightly lower ABV, slightly refreshing, it's a very specific style of drink. I think it's fascinating.
I think it's quite difficult to say.
It is really difficult because basically we've tracked this. Like, this is like, we really dig this, so it's a bit sad about it, really. But yeah, so with like short serve drinks and Mad Men, that's one, and then aperitivo is another. Gin's the same. It takes about 7-8 years for something to become hugely mass consumer. At the minute,
like the old fashioned is then now going the way of the aperitivo, and it's highballs is quite a big thing in the bars.
Yeah, but that, I don't think that will come through. It won't become mass trend yet. It has to start in the bar and go to those top tier consumers to then trickle down until it's gin and tonic in a balloon glass. Like, that is just how people drink that now. That is you have to specifically say, could I not have it in that giant fishbowl, please? That is just how it is in all the pubs. So. But what we
I still really think the take home and learning how to make it at home. I just don't think we're seeing it on a mass level yet. I just think that people asking more about how to make things in the bar.
Yeah. And in terms of flavours, there's a lot more fortified, I feel like, coming through at the minute. Like, every cocktail competition we judge at the minute is sherry, port, as like one of the staple ingredients. So yes, there's your spirit, and then your next ingredient down, pretty much like in every drink at the minute is a fortified wine of some description. So that's interesting, but that's also way over there. That's not going to come anywhere near mass consumers for a while yet, because most of them don't really understand what it tastes like on its own. They just know what it tastes like in that cocktail. So it's kind of, it'll take a while.
That's cool. That's good. I thought I'd just test and see if I had it. Okay, I've just got a couple more questions. So one thing we haven't really touched on yet is the values piece and actually experiences or drinks or brands with purpose. So you can read purpose how you like, but we've already mentioned the word vegan before.
Yeah.
Whether that's part of the purpose picture, whether it's something more about sustainability. I'll leave it completely open, but what springs to mind for you when I say like experiences or brands or drinks with purpose?
I think with regards to purpose and a kind of a wider social responsibility, again, it has to come back to authenticity. And we noticed this year at London Cocktail Week, there was a few brands that were going to do a whole big thing around sustainability and around, creating a bar that was 100% sustainable, and actually none of them happened this year. Maybe they will next year, but I think
or the year after, maybe. Actually, maybe it's a little bit further away than even 2020.
But I think it's about making smaller, more authentic changes to a strategy, rather than going all in and saying it's 100% sustainable. And because I think people